a heart that hurts. I want to spend my life mending broken people. I want to spend my life mending broken people. Hello and welcome to 3ABN Today. Thank you for joining us as you do each and every day. My co-host today is Dr. Yvonne Lewis. Hello,
Hey.
Yvonne.
Hello, Danny.
How are you doing? You got a word of wisdom, something good for the folk here?
Just stay tuned and see what God does.
We're going to do something that Yvonne and I are old enough to remember. Some of you at home may be old enough to remember. There was an old program. What's it called? What's my
This
life?
Is Your Life.
This Is Your Life. And
Why
so,
you always saying I'm old?
well, I said we're old enough. I didn't say how old you were. I just said we're old enough to remember this particular program. Well, that's what we've been doing with some of the co-workers here at 3ABN, our administrative team. We're going to different couples and saying, hey, folk know you from television and they've seen you, but there's things that the folks at home probably would like to know that you've never told them or maybe never had the opportunity. Because if you get, I'm going to introduce right now, of course, Brian and Diane Hamilton. But like Brian, when he's sitting out there with John Loma King and C.A. Murray and my brother Kenny and myself and Shelley and Molly, you have a hard time getting any words in. So maybe you just haven't had a chance to tell us some things that you would have. But today, you guys, we won't call it the hot seat, but you're on the seat that we're going to explore a little bit and go back. And I think, folks, it's really good. When they see people, they like to get to know these folk, tell me a little of their background. And that's why we started years ago trying to go into people's background and their lives. And so today it's good to have you here. You're the CFO, of course, here at 3ABN, and Diane, you work in the, what's your?
Plan Giving Department.
Plan Giving Department, okay.
One of the secretaries.
All right, and of course Yvonne is Dare to Dream manager.
Yes.
So we're glad that all of you are here today. Before we actually get into the interview, we're going to find out a lot about the Hamiltons here in just a few moments. And it's going to be good stuff. And our prayer is that you'll be blessed, you'll be drawn closer to Jesus, because in every life, I've found this out the older I get, when you look at somebody's life, there's things you can learn, there's things and we all have things in common. We look at somebody, Yvonne, well, you look at Yvonne, I always tell people, now she looks like she's successful, doesn't she? I mean, and we're somewhere around people, I'll say, she looks like she's got money, don't you? And people's like, yeah, she does. Now, she tells us that's not true, and I'll take her to words. But there are certain things, you look at somebody like Yvonne and you say, boy, I bet she's never had a problem. She would not know what it's like to be hungry. She wouldn't know what it's like to not know where the next dollar's coming from. She wouldn't know what it's like to be sick. I can just tell, they can tell by looking at you, everything has just been easy on all your life. Well, we tend to do that as people.
Yeah,
you watch
we do.
somebody on television. Well, this is to say, you know what, we'll learn from people's lives. I can tell you when you're on the front line for Jesus, especially, everything's not going to be a bed of roses and barrel of fun, as we say, all the time. But what we find out when we submit and commit our lives to Jesus Christ, guess what happens? We find victory, and God brings us through trials and tribulations, and we actually can grow closer to Him through these things. So the idea is not just to talk about their past, but hopefully and prayerfully, you'll be drawn closer to the Lord by their testimony today. We're going to be talking, before we go into that, though, we got a song. And this is some of our young kids that we've invited to come here some time ago. We put together a little CD called It's a Beautiful World. And so the song on this particular one that they're singing for us today is entitled Heaven.
Such a beautiful place. We'll see Jesus face to face. All sorrow and pain He will erase. Heaven's such a beautiful place.
Have you ever wondered what heaven will be like? The Bible says in 1 Corinthians 2:9, But as it is written, eye has not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for them that love him.
Heaven's such a beautiful place. We'll see Jesus face to face. All sorrow and pain he will erase. Heaven's such a beautiful place.
We have so much beauty here on earth that we can behold. All the beautiful lakes and streams and oceans filled with all the colorful and wondrous creatures from the sea world to the highest snow-capped mountains pointing towards God's created heavens. And yet it suddenly occurred to me why heaven is so much more beautiful than this old earth of ours. It's not just about what heaven has that makes it so wonderful. It's also about what heaven does not have. Do you know what's missing in heaven? It's sin. And why is there no sin in heaven? Because Jesus is there. Imagine a place where there is no sickness, no pain, or death. I can't wait for heaven. How about you?
Heaven's such a beautiful place. We'll see Jesus face to face. All sorrow and pain he will erase. Heaven's such a beautiful place. Heaven's such a beautiful place. We'll see Jesus face to face. All sorrow and pain he will erase. Heaven's such a beautiful place. Heaven's such a beautiful place. Such a beautiful place.
I love that song. It's so happy and upbeat, and the children just seem like they're really into it. All the songs on that CD really conceptualize different things, and heaven, and seven's the perfect number, and all these great songs. So if you don't have that CD, you need to get it. Share it with somebody.
Well, the title of this little project is called It's a Beautiful World. And so today our interview with Brian and Diane, we're going to find out it's a beautiful world when God's in it, when He's in control, right?
That's true.
And
That's true.
so let's start back a little bit, and I think we should start with ladies first. So Yvonne, I'm going to let you go in and ask some Diane, because she's the one that wants to talk the least, so we might as well get hers over with to begin with, right?
So Diane, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Ohio, so I'm a Buckeye.
Okay.
And where are you in the birth order in your family?
I'm the third one, and there were 4 of us, 2 boys, 2 girls.
And was it a Christian household?
Yes, we were blessed to have a Christian home, and it was a loving home and very committed to the Lord and committed to Christian education. And my parents really gave of themselves to provide for that. And
Seventh-day Adventist?
Seventh-day Adventist.
Okay, now how did they become Seventh-day Adventist?
Well, Dad and his family, he was raised a Seventh-day Adventist. And then my mother, she became an Adventist when she was a teenager.
Okay.
Was it a colporteur or someone that brought some
Right, a
books to the...
colporteur brought a book to their home, and
Yeah, that's a...
her and her 2 sisters and her mother became Adventists, and they were the only ones in the family. And the family was like older kids, and then a second group of kids came along later, and my mom was in the second group. And so that put a bonding with them because of their beliefs. And so,
Diane's mom went to Oak
Park
Academy in Iowa.
Okay.
And my mom and my dad went to Oak Park Academy at the same time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that right?
And then your mom and dad met at Andrews, and we met at Andrews. So it's kind of interesting how that worked.
Absolutely. When you were growing up, did you have dreams and aspirations of, you know, what you wanted to be when you became an adult?
No, I just kind of went
Just took it
along.
one day at a time.
One day at a time, yeah. And
Sometimes when you grow up Adventist, you kind of take things for granted and you just kind of settle into the routine of Adventism versus, you know, really being rooted. Which were you? Were you into the routine or were you really rooted?
I would say, you know, into the routine, but rooted too. I didn't have any big fluctuations in my life, just very even.
You never went out and said, I think I've had it with church, I've had it with the Lord,
No,
and
I
go out
loved
and try
the Lord
something
all
different?
along, you know. When I
Yeah.
was little, I fought tears a lot, and being anything religious, and I'm fighting tears, you know. And had to pray my way through all of that, and yeah, I was very close to the Lord throughout my life.
Yeah, her folks were always, in family, were always active in the church.
Okay.
Very active, and whatever the church, local church was doing, they were a part of it. If there was an activity going on, the whole family was there. They were that kind of family.
That was back in the day that when you'd go to Vespers, Friday night
Yes,
Vespers, you'd have your hair already done in curlers. And my sister and I'd go to Vespers with our curlers
Really?
and a scarf over it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
In preparation for the next day for Sabbath,
For
right? So you-
Sabbath, right? Yeah. So anyway,
For church.
fortunately we don't have to do that anymore.
And when I met her, it was juice cans. I mean, big.
Oh,
Oh,
for the
wow,
church.
she had long hair. She must have had long hair.
Yeah.
Longer hair. I think in a little bit we're going to get some pictures of them, so whenever you want some
Well,
up.
maybe this would be a good time to show Diane's family so people
Okay.
can see what they look like. And Diane, which one are you?
I'm
On the left, right?
yeah, on the left, and
Okay.
Some people might not know, but the little one on the right, the little gal on the right, is our cook for camp meeting.
Oh, is that right? Boy, she a good one, too.
Yes, she is.
Wow,
And then there's
okay.
two
So-
brothers, mom and dad.
we were a poor family. My parents just really sacrificed a lot to when they built their own home, and we were on the subfloor, and us kids, it didn't matter to us. And one time my mother reared back in her chair at the table because somebody had not talked properly to her, and she was going to
Deal with.
discipline, and her chair leg went down into the hole of a knot hole in
Oh.
the floor, you know. And so that kind of ended that little discipline because
Somebody's
she-
prayer was answered.
So we had that as-
one of
She
the
lost
kids
her
said,
balance,
thank you,
or-
Lord.
Yeah, she had lost her balance, and of course it was a big laugh. And,
Yeah.
and,
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, discipline, because apparently your folks did something right, because very few people just say, I've always loved the Lord, I've hung in there, I just never really wanted to go out in the world. So you saw parents living what they were teaching you, obviously,
right.
but what kind of discipline was in your home?
Well, we were taught to obey.
Yeah.
And we obeyed. We knew that if they said, okay, it's time to go, we went.
Even your
And-
brothers?
Yeah.
They didn't-
Even them,
They didn't
okay.
try you, so they didn't.
I mean, you know, and my personality was just very easygoing. And
Yeah.
so, you know, every kid is different. And
They never used a switch or a belt or
Oh,
anything?
yeah.
but-
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they did? Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh,
From time to time.
it
So-
didn't hurt us at all. It was a godsend. I appreciate my parents were conservative. And they were careful, especially with their daughters, and I appreciate that because I don't have any of some of the issues that other little girls had because they weren't carefully guarded. So
Wow,
I was
great.
blessed.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So how did your parents obviously set a really good example for you? How did that play out on a day-to-day basis? Did you have family worship? Like,
Yes.
how did they work together as a team to bring up their children?
Yeah. Well, we knew that if Dad said no, we didn't go to Mom and ask
Okay.
her. We knew that. So they were united in their words, and there was no fighting in the home between them. Fighting among the kids, yeah. We were
Yeah.
kind of normal that way. But it was I mean, just very blessed, very, very blessed.
Well, apparently my folks went to school with your folks, because that's the way they dealt with it. There was discipline, and they never argued among each themselves.
Yeah.
I'm sure they must have had disagreements when we were around, but we knew as the kids that you don't ask one parent to do something, they say no and go to another one, because that would turn around and bite you. And so you knew better than to do that.
Yeah.
So parental training and the education through worship.
Right.
And prayer, and then consistently going to church.
Yeah, very committed to the church. Our church was amazing too. It was a very family-oriented church, and it was not segregated. Well, the youth are playing games tonight, and the teenagers this, and the little kids this. It was family. It was so awesome.
Okay.
And every Saturday night was get together and play games. And they had ping pong table, and I can remember I was on the team with my dad or whoever. And then other little kids would be with their, so there'd be an adult and a kid. And we'd play teams, and it just was really amazing how bonding it was for the church. And it was like, wow, this is so neat. And I didn't realize how neat it was until later when we had our own kids, and no longer did they do that as a family. It was like, oh, it's a teenager's night tonight to play ball and whatever. But we had just a very awesome, every Saturday night was something special.
Something to look forward to, huh?
Yeah, and
that's
so
great.
of course we had to go home and take a nap so that we could, not be grumpy.
Absolutely.
See, that was Worthington? Is that
No,
where
it was Columbus.
Columbus.
Okay.
Columbus.
All right. Well, Brian, let's talk about you now. Where were you born and raised?
Okay, well, I was born in Walla Walla, Washington.
Oh, wow.
They liked the
Okay.
name so well, they named it twice, you see, Walla Walla. And
You lived there till you're how old?
well, my folks, we went to the mission field when I was 3.
Oh, wow.
And came back, I was just about 10. We had a 6.5-year term in the
Okay.
mission field. And so my father was a principal, and my mother was a nurse and taught nursing, and I was a missionary kid.
Oh, okay.
What other languages do you speak?
Well, we spoke Urdu, was the language in Pakistan. And us kids learned it. In fact, we could speak it better than our folks. Our folks really never...
Sure.
They learned a few words here and there, but us kids were quite fluent. And when we came back to the States, then Dad would take us from church to church doing mission stories, and we had to get up and sing "Jesus Loves Me" and "This Little Light of Mine" and songs like that in Urdu. I was so happy to forget Urdu, and I don't have a word of it today. It's God.
But you know what we just heard? He sings. See,
No,
we didn't know. We didn't
The
know
three
that
of
you
us,
were a
it was
singer.
just a joyful noise unto the Lord. Okay.
You said us
But-
kids, how many?
Okay, I have an older brother and a younger brother.
Okay.
And I think I have a couple pictures. One of my mom and my dad. Mom
Okay.
was graduated from nursing there. And then the next one is of our family. And that was taken just either just after we got back to the States or just before we got back. I don't know
Wow.
which.
Now, which one are you?
I'm the one in the middle. And little brother Doug, and my older brother Robert, and my mom and my dad.
All right.
That was our
Wow.
family.
Absolutely. So they came back, and then what did he do once he came
Yeah,
back?
he was principal at, well, he finished a
out in
master's
Washington?
degree, and then out in Portland, Oregon, he was
Oh,
the
okay.
principal of academy there, and he was in education, public school education, most all the rest of his life.
Okay.
He's passed
So you
away.
kind of grew up on the West Coast?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Except for that 6-year period in the mission field.
Yeah.
One of the things that, you know, as we're talking about our life and our family, one of the things that I hope come through is we both were modeled service, a life of service for
Okay.
God. You know, with Diane and her folks, they were active in their local church and service. And so
Okay.
their whole family was involved in whatever the local church was doing in service. And then for me, I mean, I was excited as a kid and proud to be a part of a family that was going to a mission land. You know, you'd sing in Sabbath school,
Sure.
you know, about being a mission, you know, mission boat or mission plane or whatever. And that's what we were about. And so even though they didn't have to teach us about service, their life was service. And so then we caught, at least I did, I caught this idea of service, you know, through our mission experience. And as a child too, I'm much like Diane, I loved the Lord, grew up on the Bible stories and Uncle Arthur's bedtime stories,
Yeah,
and Benny the Beaver and Humpy the Moose, and you know, all those little books that they had for kids that were part of the reading plan, you know, for youth. And so that was neat.
You had a very good, loving family life.
Yes, we did. Although, you know, we also had tragedy. My folks split up a few years after coming to the United States, and that was a very painful experience to go through. I was about 9 or 10 about that time, 10 years old, 10 or 11, and I learned from that you know, even if you are involved in the Lord's work, it doesn't mean that you aren't free from temptation or free from tragic experiences. You know, they come your way. And for me, as I went through that and experiences later on, I began to see that there's a bigger picture, that when you go through a particular tragedy in your life, that's not the end of it. I mean, there's something more beyond. You know, there's life beyond that tragedy. And so you have the choice of, do you take it and embrace it and hug it, the tragedy, and fondle it and continue bringing it back? And if so, then you're always bound by it. Or do you say, okay, Lord, you know, you cry, you weep, you mourn, and then you go on and see, what does the Lord have for me to do? And so that was part of a difficult time in our lives to go through that experience. So I ended up with Mom and my younger brother, and my older brother ended up with my dad. And then our family split a little bit there for many years.
So did you go to academy then when you got a little older?
Yep, I went to Auburn Academy.
Okay.
And I was there for 3 years. Diane went to Mount Vernon Academy, and one year, or part of 1 year, to Indiana Academy.
Okay.
Yeah. My mom remarried about 5-6 years later, and she married McNeilis.
Okay.
In fact, there's Garwin McNeilis is my stepbrother.
Okay.
Here we have a picture of my stepfather and my mother just shortly after they were married, and this was Garwin McNeilis's father. So his name was Lyndon McNeilis.
Okay.
And that marriage drew me out to Minnesota.
Oh, wow. From the West Coast and
to Minnesota.
nice weather to going up to cold in the wintertime.
Oh, yes,
Minnesota,
that was
right?
dramatic. That was culture shock. But I spent a fun summer, I'll have to say, a fun summer helping to build a house that they lived in for all their life.
Okay.
And And so that was a good experience for me. I liked building, and in fact, that's what I thought I would become, as a contractor, you know, building or carpenter or something
Sure.
like that. And I went to college to find a wife, not to get an education.
Okay.
And then I was going to be a contractor.
Well, at least you're upfront about it.
Yeah,
Some
you know,
people don't
I
say
mean, there
what
was a
they
mission,
go
you
for.
know.
And he had the Andrews book that had all the pictures in it, and he had all the girls he wanted to try out circled.
Yeah, yellow markered.
Yellow.
I went very systematic about this thing.
Okay.
Started with the A's and worked my
Well,
way
then,
through.
can you just might as well tell us, how did you get Diane, and how did she work into all this? Was she
Well,
one
it
of
I
those?
was the last one.
It took 2 tries, I'll have to say that.
Oh, it took 2 tries.
Yeah,
but
when-
she was marked on the.
Yeah, she was marked on there,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right. Well,
And
you got to dare to dream, right?
That's right.
yeah, you
Dare to
have to
dream.
dare to dream.
Dare to
That's right. And I made one attempt to land a date, and she was already dating somebody.
Oh.
And so it took me about a year later to get around and muster up a second try at that. And this time it worked.
This time she said yes.
Yeah, so he came
So
up.
what did you think about Brian when you first saw him?
Oh, I thought he was cute.
Good answer. All
Did he
right.
turn on the charm?
Well, you know, he made some comment. We had eaten lunch together or something. He walked me back to the dorm and said something about, you know, I don't mean to be in your face, or, you know, if you're not interested, that's fine. I said, yeah, I'm not interested. But he didn't hear it.
It went
Selective
over. It went
hearing.
over. Thank goodness it
Yeah.
went over. I would have been devastated
Oh,
otherwise.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was very
So
direct.
tell the rest of the story.
Yeah.
It was,
You got to hear the rest of
he
it.
asked, you know,
Yeah.
so.
Well, she went back to her dorm and told her sister what she had said to me, and her sister got all over for that, you know.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
goodness. So Nita has always been my ally, you know. And so because I didn't hear it, I asked again, not thinking anything was wrong, you know.
Okay.
And so then she.
So why did you say yes now? Next time.
Well, when I went back into the dorm, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I really think that or not. Anyway.
She was willing to give another try.
Okay. What year was this? In school, I mean, freshman, sophomore.
73, 74, 73. We married in 75. So I'd
Okay.
have been 70. We dated for 2 years, so
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
And
So
there is a picture coming up, I think, of our wedding.
wedding.
You can
Okay.
see Diane with her long hair.
Oh,
And
wow.
I actually had hair. believe it or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. See that.
Yeah.
Sideburns.
Sideburns.
Yeah. Where was that? Was that up in Andrews area or
No, it's in Ohio.
Ohio? Okay.
Lovely couple.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that was
Now,
where our life.
Were you out of college by then?
I had quit because I had who I wanted. I
He'd accomplished his mission.
Yeah, I had 3 years under my belt and I quit. Everybody told me I was nuts, and
Yeah.
I was foolish for doing that.
Yeah.
But I had what I wanted, and I went and started my work. I was installed carpet and vinyl
Okay.
floors. I'd learned that trade,
Sure.
and that was. And Lyndon McNeilis helped me buy my first pickup
Okay.
and my tools to get
Yeah,
going.
okay.
And then I dropped out about January, and we got married in June.
Uh-huh.
And I had enough business
And
going.
Diane, what was you thinking? He quit college on you, and you went ahead. You married him anyway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I finished. I took 2 years to finish my senior year,
Uh-huh.
and so I could just kind of take it easy and not be full-time student and married too. So
Yeah, and we walked home or drove home from her graduation ceremony service on Sunday, and I got a phone call from a little mill, a Delphian mill that was connected with our academy in Flint area, Michigan. They were needing an accountant, and they'd somehow, I think I'd left a resume at the school in one of the offices there that they help kids, students get jobs, and I had a resume there, and they got it, and I got this call out of the blue. So that started us on a whole different adventure.
Oh.
I went from running a hammer to trying to learn to run a calculator. And boy, was that ever embarrassing. You go into an office and these women can type like a storm, you know, and run the calculator, and I'm sitting there because, you know, I just had never learned it. In school, you learn all the accounting and you write it, and you just don't run the machines, you know. And anyway, so that was our first big adventure in service together, was working at Adelphian Academy at the little factory there, and I was their accountant.
How long after you were married did you have to move into that? Did you move? Did you relocate?
Yeah, that was 2 years in. Took Diane 2 years to finish her school, and then we moved to Flint. And we were there. That's where our children were born.
Yeah, both boys were born there.
Yeah.
Really? Flint?
Yeah.
We have a picture of your family too with your boys. And
Yeah, that was, then Brian decided to go back to seminary.
Well, and I finished my business degree when I did.
Oh, you did go back to school. You
Yeah,
finished your
after
business
4
degree.
years, went back to school. Now it was much more expensive. There
Yeah.
wasn't parents helping me because now we were on our own.
Yes.
And
We had 2 kids.
we had 2 kids, but we did it. And the
Then
Lord,
why, after doing that, why did you go back now to go to the seminary?
Well, you know, when we were we lived in Holly, which is right close to Flint, and we were active in the church just like our folks were active in the church. We started being active, and I was Sabbath school teacher for kids department, and then deacon, and then an elder, and then they asked me to speak up front for a Sabbath.
Yeah.
And that was scary because I wasn't much on the outgoing side of things, and this puts you up in front of people and speaking, you know, that was scary. But I did it. The Lord helped me, and I don't know if it was good or not good, but at least I crossed that threshold. And after doing that, a haunting whisper of the Lord that maybe He had a role for me, either pastoral or something in the church.
However, you had felt pastoral before.
Yeah, but I was just too frightened to be up front of people. That was just too intimidating for me at that point. In fact, going back, that summer I spent in Minnesota with the McNeilises and my mom there, my stepfather, since he thought I would be a good pastor, I should go and do sales work for him.
Oh, okay.
And I was supposed to go and do this sales work. I couldn't do it. I spent one morning doing it, came back and told him, I'm sorry. And he says, well, how are you ever going to be a pastor
if
you can't meet people? And I said, I guess I'm not going to be a pastor. So I put that on the back burner. In business, I took accounting and business, you know. I figured that would help me as a contractor.
But then you went back.
Yeah, and so then we went back to school, and so I finished my business degree, and we put a fleece out to the Lord. If He wanted us to go into pastoring, then He needed to give us a sponsorship. And we got interviewed by Michigan Conference and hired, sponsored, and went to the seminary. And then the picture that we have coming up, I think, is the one where at graduation, there's our 2 little boys.
Okay.
And Diane and I getting our graduation. I still have that flat hat stuck away in the box. Yeah.
Okay.
With and the robes are disposable.
About what year was this now?
Now that would have been probably 82 or 3, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's interesting how we financed that. We had bought a little house in a subdivision, and I mean it was just a little 3-bedroom house with a little garage off the back in a subdivision that all the houses looked the same, exactly the same. Nothing different about them, and probably built just after the war or something.
Yeah.
And we got this house, and we got it because we made so little money at the mill.
Right.
Okay, we just afforded to get a loan that was a government loan for people who made small amounts of money. Okay. Then when we decided we were going to do this thing going back to school and going into the ministry, we that was our asset. That if we could sell that, and I had figured out how much money I needed to finish my education, I tacked that onto what we owed on the house. And it meant that house had to sell for at least $7,000 or $8,000 more than any other house that was listed for sale in that subdivision. Most of them were listed for $36,000 at that time, and we had to list ours and sell it for about $48,000.
Oh, wow.
So it was clear out of priced, you know. We called the realtor in and said, this is what we want to list our house for, and we want to list it for 90 days, 3 months. And if the Lord sells his house in the first half of that 90 days, we're going into pastoring. If he sells it in the last half of that 90 days, we're going to go in and just business.
Wow.
And if it doesn't sell at all, guess what? We're going to stay right here.
Okay.
That's not the call of the Lord to us. And we went right up to the last week of the first half, and it sold for what we asked for.
Wow.
Every penny. And that was
amazing.
That's what
praise the Lord.
Yeah, that's
Amen.
what financed us to go to sell.
So now, did you find pastoring easier than selling?
No, it was baptism of fire. Oh, dear. I pastored a two-church district right in the subdivisions of Berrien Springs.
Okay.
You know, so you have these big mega Adventist churches like Pioneer Memorial, the Village Church, and I had two little ones, Stevensville and one called Chickamine.
Okay.
We had two-church district.
Yeah.
And bless those folk at Stevensville and Chickamine for putting up with us in our learning experience. To say that.
Tell us about your children.
Okay, Diane?
Well, our firstborn child was a challenge. He cried a lot, and here we are, new parents, and it's like, oh man, what do you do with this kid? You just quit crying, you know? So it was hard. I was always calling my mom. Okay, he's doing this. What's the matter? You know?
Well, how do we fix it?
Oh dear, crying at night and everything. Then when the second one came, and he was 14 months later, he never cried. And it was like,
Call Mom again. What's wrong? He's not crying.
and he was always sleeping. And it's like, wow. Whereas the first one, it's like, man, it was just a battle to get him to sleep, to get him to quit crying, and and I wasn't born a mother, and anyway, so it was challenging, but still enjoyed it, and it was a blessing having them. And
How
they
many
were
children do you have?
just the two boys.
And their names?
Leith, Leith, and Trent.
Okay.
And
We have,
When we were dating,
yes.
she let me know she was not really a motherly type, and so there are no kids.
Oh,
I
okay.
says, okay, I got to know that. She says, I'm not going to marry a pastor.
Okay.
I was business, so that was no problem. She says, and I'm not going over the mission field where there's bugs and all kinds of snakes, and I'm not doing any of those things.
And a trucker. I wasn't going to marry a trucker.
That's true, too. Well, I wasn't going to be a trucker. But I went out in a couple of them.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we had a picture a little ago. Maybe we could put it back up. There you go, the family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's our family.
All right. Good looking family.
It's our two boys, and Leith and Trent. Leith is in the blue. Trent is standing next to him. And Jill, our daughter-in-law, and our two grandkids, James and Lexi. So that's our family.
Nice.
Go
The
ahead.
grandkids are pretty special.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were much easier than my own kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's often the
was
case,
like,
isn't it?
oh, this is so sweet.
Yeah, absolutely.
You had a very intense challenge with one of your children. Tell us about that.
Okay. Our oldest son, Leith, was involved in a very tragic situation that put him he's incarcerated today. And that happened just shortly after we came here to 3ABN. And it was very traumatic to have a son charged with the crime of murder and guilty of it, and go through that experience. It was not at all characteristic of him. It was very, anyway, it was very traumatic. Traumatic for him and the experience he went through, and for, of course, us as a family. But here again, when our life is dedicated to God and to His service, the promise is that He will take anything that comes your way, He'll take it and He'll turn it.
Okay.
If we give it over to Him, He'll take
That's
it
right.
and He'll turn it in some way for the good.
That's right.
Okay? And so the picture we saw of our family there was taken in a visitor center in a California prison.
Oh, wow.
That was
Okay.
where that's the setting for that picture.
Okay.
And one of the neat things about photoshopping, I wasn't in that picture.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Every prison has their own rules. In this particular prison, the rules are you can only have 5 visitors at one time in to visit. And there are 6 of us. And so I had a picture taken separately at a different visit. and Diane and the kids there were on that visit. But thankfully, our Photoshop could put me in the picture.
Okay,
and that put us all together in that visiting.
Okay. How is this, it's dramatically changed your life.
Oh, yeah.
And tell us a little bit what this has done. You can either, when Satan throws something at you, you can let it defeat you, or you can say, you know what, God's a creator, Satan's an imitator, God creates beautiful things around ugly circumstances of sin, death, disease, sickness, all of those things. Tell us what it's done for you and Diane, because it's been a tremendous, putting you in a direction you probably never dreamed you'd be.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, you know, as we got involved in visiting our son during this process of the trial and all that, we began to see other hurting people who are in the very same circumstances we were in, going to visit and all the security situations you have to go through. And as we began to see that, the Lord just opened our eyes to a need in the area of prison ministry that we never had seen before, never ever thought of, never considered, never had it entered our mind, you know. And so one of the visits that we made early on to see our son, we saw a couple a little bit older than us who were also, we could see grief on their face like on ours. And they were there for their first visit, as we had been just a few days before our first visit. And we could see how lost they were about how to do it. And now we had gone through it. And so we had this chance to take them and walk them through their first journey in. And it just happened to be the very same visitor's spot that our son was in. So we also knew that they were visiting their son who must have been involved in something very serious, because he wouldn't have been in that same visiting area. And so that was our first launch into what we call prison ministry. Was in that. Came back here to 3ABN and of course shared with our family here what had happened. And we had decided to be open about it, not closed, not you know, not pretend like it didn't happen or whatever. And I think by us doing that, being open, you know, about our tragedy, it allowed people to minister to us and know how to, because we're open. We weren't closed about it. We weren't secretive about it. And so people ministered to us here at 3ABN, people we knew in other places where we worked, email, call, right? And we were ministered to as a result of that. Also had a chance then to be invited to help out in one of our local prisons here. And be involved in going in and doing services there. And then Diane joined me, and then we ended up taking over it, and then we added another prison and another prison, and then we started organizing concerts for the prisons and gift bags for the prisons.
Wow.
And so it's been a neat journey.
Look
you know?
at God and how He takes one of the most tragic situations that you've ever encountered and turns it into something that can help others and help you at the same time. I've had the privilege of going with Brian and Diane to different facilities, and their passion and their enthusiasm and zeal for what they're doing and for service to these inmates and ultimately service to God, it's just so inspiring. So it's
We've
a
been trying to
blessing.
twist Danny's arm into coming, but he's had conflicts a couple
We'll-
times.
Yeah,
but
we'll get there. I have done it before on a
Someday.
couple occasions.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see some of these folks. And I actually, one man I'll never forget said to me, you know, I praise the Lord that I'm in here because I would be lost today. But I found it was through Richard Bland's ministry.
Yeah.
I found the Lord.
Yeah.
So he says, I can sing, I was blind, but now I see.
Yeah.
And he says, now I feel badly for the folks on the outside. They think they're free, but I'm on the inside and I'm free in Jesus.
Yeah.
And a lot of the folks outside are the ones really in prison.
That's right.
I mean, that's an
that is
amazing
so true.
testimony
Yeah.
to hear that. And you guys, you get to hear that all the time. But
Yes.
this prison ministry is blossoming, and now it's 3ABN prison ministry. Of course, you guys are the head of it. And Yvonne, had you been to prison ministry before, or is this?
I had in New York. I had done a few things, but I really enjoy going with Brian and Diane. It's so, for me, it is just so touching. And I wanted to ask you, Diane, as a mother, if you would speak to a mother right now, just like give like a quick word to a mother who's hurting, whose son or daughter has just gotten in trouble, what would you say to that mother?
Well, I would say, you know, it's in God's hands. I trusted my son into God's hands because, you know, you worry about their safety in the prison, and I just claimed those texts where God goes before and He covers your back end too. And I just claimed those promises for our son, and then that gave me peace, and so that I could carry the load, you know, and let God carry it. And it's constant putting it back on Him. You know, this is your child. This is, you know, you've got to take care of him. I can't.
It's kind of like we laid our Isaac down,
Yeah.
you know, into the Lord's hands. And that's the neat part of the story is our son's life is turned around. He,
Praise the
you
Lord.
know, and it's very consistent. The last 6 years he has dedicated to the Lord. He witnesses for the Lord. He's living his life for the Lord in that dark place as a light, okay?
Yeah.
And so God's blessing his life too, you know. And,
But it tells you, what this tells us is that we're all vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it can happen to anybody. You
Right.
can look at any family, anywhere you want.
That's
and
right.
think, as we were saying earlier in the program, boy, they've never had a problem. But like for you, it's not like you had a son who grew up in a life of crime and
No.
was doing bad things at all. This was a shock, right?
Yeah.
To you guys. I mean,
Yeah.
it had to be a nightmare experience for you. I'm sure you'd wake up thinking that was a nightmare,
Yeah.
hoping it was a nightmare.
like to wake up from this and find out it was just a dream, a bad
Yeah.
dream. You know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you didn't wake up from it, and it wasn't a.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the Lord gives us comfort, and He comforted us. People comforted us, and reached out to us, and of course we were ministering to our son, and the Lord worked and blessed that. You know, I remember the first visit, first time, phone, heavy glass. He's on the other side. We're in between. At the end of that visit, he said, "Dad, Mom, I'm sorry for what's happened, but I want you to know I'm turning my life around. I'm going to live it differently." And He's kept that promise, you know.
Yeah.
That's- The Lord didn't do that for any of us. And it gives us this experience we've passed through. now when we go into prison and we look in those faces and in those
Absolutely.
eyes,
That's what I
we
was gonna
see
say.
something totally different than other
Yes.
people see. Other people see somebody that's done some horrible crime. We see someone that's winnable for Christ.
Yeah.
You see a son,
Yeah.
a daughter.
Yeah.
You know,
And
what you
as
see.
we've worked with the prisoners, you know, they are just as human and caring. When we go visit our son, they say, "Oh, we'll be praying for you." You know, just because they did a crime doesn't mean
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They're people too, and they love the Lord and making a difference now where they're at, and it's just really awesome to see them.
Yeah.
And I think it makes a difference with them knowing that you've had the experience of being a parent
Yeah.
of someone who's incarcerated. It gives you a point of reference with them,
Yeah.
a point of identification with
Yeah.
them, so that they can relate to you. You're not just somebody, some kind of missionary coming in
Right.
with no
Who doesn't
idea
have a
as to what
clue.
the
Yeah,
experience
yeah.
is. You've lived it. Because
Yeah.
they say that, you know, the family does the bid with the inmate.
Yeah.
You know, you do the time just like they do.
Yeah.
So,
But you know, those that come in with us, that help us in our prison ministry, that don't have children or whatever other loved ones in prison, I admire them for their dedication too, because they don't have that driving factor like we do, and yet they're just as committed. And the guys, they see that too. They see love, and that's what counts. And they know it's not artificial. They're not, you know, it's
For real.
So
It's for real.
In the physical, you know, it may be difficult to explain all this. In the spiritual,
Yeah.
when Jesus comes and your son is there with you in heaven, that price that he's paid and what happened, of course, God forgives all that.
Yeah.
That it's like a fleeting moment, it's gone.
Yeah.
Where before, I don't know his spiritual life or if he was dedicated to the Lord or not, but the point is now that he has totally given his life to the Lord, and now that he can be like the other, he's maybe freer in prison than he was outside.
Oh, yeah.
And so the end result is eternal life. And so, you know, the song Lanny Wolf wrote, whatever it takes for my will to break, that's what I'll be willing to do. I'll trade sunshine for rain, comfort for pain.
Yeah.
That's what I'll be willing to do. Whatever it takes for my will to break.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that's hard for us. All of us, it is. But if we're really praying that, so I think what we're learning here today, no matter what it looks like, no matter how bad it is, God's the creator. He can create something beautiful
Yeah.
around these terrible circumstances of sin, death, disease, and sickness that we're all a part of. But this has really been good. Brian and Diane, thank you so much for sharing. We've learned a lot about the folks.
we have.
And we've learned that you love the Lord. And we're so thankful that Brian and Diane have chosen to be here at 3ABN. What a blessing to have you, and to have you in the position, both of you, that you're doing. You're great with people. You're great with the finances and with people. And I appreciate having an attitude. It's tough to get, I always say, CFOs who smile a lot, because they're always dealing with finances, you know. So it's tough. Brian always amazes me because he seems happy like the rest of us, even though he's having to struggle with getting everything paid and all of that.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for what you do. We're going to take just a short break for our news break, and then we're going to be back in just a moment.
You know, it's so amazing that God can take the worst circumstance and turn it into a blessing. And even though it was terrible when it was happening, but we can see from you guys that you have the passion and a zeal. This is why you were created, to do this work. So we thank you so much for being with us.
Well, it's a blessing to be here at 3ABN. Every day is a blessing.
yes.
Praise the Lord. God is doing some great things. He's
Yeah.
alive and He's on the throne. We hope today that you've been encouraged by this testimony, because to me, I love seeing God work in somebody's lives. And I always say I love to read the back of the book, because the back of the book, Revelation, says they overcame him, Satan, by the blood of the Lamb and the word of the testimony. So basically it says, if you stick with God, He sticks with you. Hey, and as Christians, we win.
Yeah.
Our time is all gone for today. Until we see you next time, may the Lord richly bless you abundantly more than you could ever ask or think.